This is Fishermead. It's a place that has had an interesting history. Perhaps most extraordinary of all, in 1988, when an alien named Zarina landed at Newlyn Place School, now Willows, and was looked after by the children for 6 weeks before being helped to get back to her planet Zadrolite.
It was a big bang at the night time. And you're thinking, what the hell was that? I thought it was a firework or something. And then the next day, when we walked into school, and there was just crowds of people, and you're like looking to see what's going on. You're not quite sure. You didn't even know it was a spaceship at the time until you got into the school, and then everyone was in the assembly hall. And then they decided to open it, and all the kids screamed and running. And then she just come out with all this crimped, wild punk rocker hair. I mean, thinking about it now, it did look really fake, but we didn't care because it was something that we were excited about. We got to teach her how to do things that our parents were still teaching us. So in a way, we were learning as we're teaching her. I remember making her home in the hall. Massive thing it was, and we got to do stained glass windows, loads of stuff we hadn't done before. Feed her all these different things.
Before and since Zarina came from another planet, many other people have landed in Fishermead from all over the world. In this film, some of them talk about their experiences and memories of moving and living here.
Let me tell you about the place I live. So much to do, so much to give. Everybody is welcome here under the chestnut trees. Come and join us in the neighborhood where all the dogs are friendly and the chicken is good. You don't know where it's gonna lead when we start a party in Fishermead. We gonna have a party in Fishermead.
I came to live in Fishermead in 1976.
I moved 10 years ago to Fishermead, and I to UK 12 years ago, from Lithuania.
When I first came here, it was really different from where I used to be, and my first impression was that it was really neat and nice.
I got divorced, and I came to stay with my sister for a while, and basically I've been living here ever since.
I was housed by the council in Fishermead. It's not a place that I ever thought I would live.
When I first came to Fishermead, it was all new to me, and I was pretty nervous because I was starting afresh. But now I'm kind of used to it, and it's really amazing to be here.
I was brought to Fishermead when I was 1.5 years old by my parents. My dad was one of the people who helped establish Fishermead. He worked on a lot of the buildings here in the shopping centres. He was a carpenter and brickie by trade. So yeah, work brought him here. So that's how we ended up in Fishermead.
In my country, there wasn't we all spoke the same language, and here people spoke many different languages, and the houses were a bit big and the same, and in my country it was different colors and stuff.
I came to Milton Keynes. Actually, I moved from the Netherlands to the United Kingdom here. And before I came and visit a friend who was living in Fishermead here, and I fell in love with Fishermead. The surrounding, the neighbors, they were lovely. So I then moved completely to stay in Fishermead here.
But before we hear from Fishermead residents, let's start our story before the first houses were built. Back in 1972, Tony Hurd joined the Milton Keynes Development Corporation Housing Department, having previously worked in Stevenage, Newtown. Part of his job was to talk to the architects of new estates at the design stage, to bring his experience of housing management and dealing with tenants to help influence the new designs. In the case of Fishermead, his suggestions fell largely on deaf ears.
When I met the architect for Fishermead, he'd been able to persuade the government because the houses were near to the city centre, that we could spend more money and charge, of course, more rents for them. So we thought really that we were going to bring in people who could afford that kind of housing, and they would all live together, like in, I don't know, Knightsbridge or wherever. All the houses seemed to be very large houses with expensive rents, and I'd actually got people who needed houses in less size and with perhaps a little bit cheaper rents. People really wanted a traditional two-storey house. The early stages, Fishermead 1 and 2, ever really became as popular as what the architect thought they would be, even though they were built in brick. The later stages of Fishermead were, of course, brick and looked much more attractive than the blocks of houses, and didn't have the open carport underneath where people could put rubbish and store things and not look really very attractive.
Whatever year they might have landed in Fishermead, people have memories of a friendly welcome.
There was a lady up the road and she was so friendly. She was sweeping her front porch, and she made me very welcome. She introduced herself, and she'd not long moved in, and we remained friends ever since.
We were a bit strapped for cash, so we didn't hire a big moving van, so we were moving furniture in little vans back and forth between London. So for the first few hours I was sitting on the floor waiting for a chair to come so I could sit on. All the neighbours were really happy, helpful, cheerful, say hello.
When I first came to Fishermead, it was quite different to where I used to live because there's way more people and there's more energetic people here.
The interesting thing when I first moved to Fishermead, the house I lived in, on one side, is a lady who I used to go to for my hairdressing. And then I found out that on the other side is a teacher who taught my children in school. So I just felt like, well, this was perfect.
In 1976, when the first residents were moving in, there was additional help for them to settle in from the Development Corporation arrivals worker.
And we had a lovely lady called Mel, I think that was her name. She was an officer that introduced herself, and she showed us around and everything and told us what things were happening in Fishermead and that, and it was really, I felt quite at home.
I think it's a very unusual family who can move from an environment that perhaps they've been in all their lives and come to somewhere like Milton Keynes, which is so different for them, and settle. That is why I think it's important for us to be available to help the people to set up groups such as Coffee Morning and Mums and Todd's playgroup and that sort of thing, which we hope fills that gap for them.
Mal Booth was interviewed as part of a 1979 documentary, Hometown, Newtown, where Fishermead was featured.
The house itself and the surroundings are really marvellous. I do not wish to go back to London at all. It was so lovely to walk in from room to room and not be crowded into one little space. I have every convenience here, a lovely bathroom, 2 toilets, which I never had in Fulham. I used to have to go to Fulham Baths to have a bath because the bath was so bad in London.
The Blakes live on Fishermead. It isn't yet finished, but the signs are that it's working out fine.
In those early days, when everybody was new and had left family and friends behind, there was a lot of emphasis on creating a new community.
Literally, it's, you know, when you say, oh, back in my day you could go out and you could run about the streets and in the neighbours' houses, it was exactly like that. Yeah. There was community. Everyone knew, you knew your neighbours, your parents knew the neighbours. There were a lot of young families and a lot of people of our age. Yeah. We only lived a couple of streets away. So we've grown up together, and I've not managed to get rid of her since. But you can go out, you go not for your friends, you can go play out in the back. There's so many green spaces, so many parks. And you just knock about, you know, on the fields, play football, you know, sit down, chat, play Kirby. There was a big community, everyone knew everyone. So it was really, really nice.
In the 80s it was, everybody spoke to everybody, everybody helped everybody.
You had like the Girl Guides, you had Brownies, you had the Boys Brigade that Michael Dunster run. He was involved in the Trinity Centre a lot. Then you had the play groups, all kids were around it all the time.
And we had a lovely club that was taken away from us.
Well, it was just a social club, really, in the early days. And it was very small, there was just a small bar, and there wasn't that many people who lived in Fishermead anyway who'd want to go there. But it was really friendly, that's where you got to know more people. And it developed, and eventually got the council to build a bigger place over by the school. And there I met my future husband.
That was my place. I grew up at the Fishermead Sports Club, yeah. We was down there quite a bit, but they used to have sports days, didn't they, with like stalls, rides, was it three-legged race, the mum and dad race and all that kind of thing. They had barbecues out there. It used to be brilliant. There was always something to do in Fishermead back in the 80s.
But after a few years, political changes were afoot that would have a very disruptive effect on the developing Fishermead community. Mrs Thatcher's Conservative government introduced the right to buy, giving council tenants the chance to buy their houses at a generous discount.
In the 80s it was fairly settled, but then you had Margaret Thatcher selling off the houses. I can't say much against that because we bought ours. But then a lot of people did buy them and rent them out, and then further on in the 90s, etc., they changed them to multiple occupancy.
A lot of people who'd been there since the sort of 80s started to sell up. You know, families moving out, the kids getting married and what have you. So they're selling up and moving on. That's when I noticed a change.
On my street, we've most probably got about 3 or 4 families that still live in there. The rest of them are multi-let. It gets very chaotic with cars and parking because you've got like 6 or 7 cars in one house.
I come back in 2011, 2012, and it's in the house next door to what I grew up in. and it's then that I noticed that it wasn't the same. So I thought that if we moved back onto Fishermead, you know, we'd have the same sort of community feeling. And so we've been here 12 years and never really made friends with the neighbours that were HMOs because they're chopping and changing all the time.
The sense of community might not be what it was in the early days of Fishermead's history, but the estate still has many attractions that appeal to those who have chosen to come and live there.
I liked the people for beginning, and now I am a mother, so I got a son, so I even like Fishermead more because of location. Everything is around, medical center, dentist, schools, college, hospital, Lidl, everything you can walk.
Close to the city centre is about the best. It's got lots of little parks everywhere.
The best bit about Fishermead is the pirate park because there are lots of friendly kids there and you can like see your friends there and there's lots of fun like equipment to play on.
There's always something going on somewhere. You can always see people. It's never a ghost town like some estates are.
Fishermead is basically like everyone from around the world in one neighbourhood. and I really enjoy meeting all the new people.
The community is more diverse. We've got all nationalities in Fishermead. The proximity to the city centre, and then I've got a lot of lovely people that I know around that patronize my business. That's why I love Fishermead so much.
I love Fishermead in many ways. I like the people, they're very important. I've made so many good friends since I moved here. The greenery is, and the trees, the flowers in spring, the blossoms. It's just a nature sort of reserve you're living in the middle of. I couldn't believe it when I first moved up here. I saw it on a map looking very green, but when I actually moved in and saw how amazingly well planned it had been in the beginning, because obviously when the trees were planted they weren't the way they are now, where they're enormous beautiful trees everywhere, up and down all the boulevards and every road. It's just amazing. So yeah, people and nature. It's just, compared with where I've lived before, it's just lovely. I love it.
What I love is the park, because there are more kind people over there and they are so welcoming.
I love the open spaces between, on this quadrant, of course, we've got a big open space between the two rows of houses in the middle, with some parking which could be better organised.
I remember in the first few months, I would go off to the cinema and watch the late night movies. I remember coming from the cinema at about 1 or 2 o'clock because the movie finished that late, and just walked down the bridge, and I was like, this is great. I'm coming from the cinema and it's just around the corner.
And the houses is like different, because in Romanian it's like the houses building from years ago, and here is like a little bit from 2 years ago.
Since we came to this place, we have a lovely residents which everybody loves us. They give us support, they give us encouragement, and we say we appreciate of that.
I think it's the people that make Fishermead. It has got like its own friendly sort of character.
There's always a door you can knock on if you need anything, as I'm getting older now.
However positive residents who live there might be about living in Fishermead, because of a few isolated incidents in the past and the negative publicity that resulted from them, the estate has a poor reputation with some people in the wider community of Milton Keynes.
For the most part, the problems that occur are between young guys with too much testosterone and not enough brain. But I think that occurs pretty well everywhere, and I don't see it as a particularly Fishermead problem.
I've lived here for 23 years, never had problem with anybody. Just meet, fine, there can be bad boys around, see them, laugh with them, just go your way. If you don't get yourself into what they do, you don't get problem. Yeah.
Before I moved in, someone did tell me, never move onto an estate that's got the name of food in it, so fish, coffee hall, things like that, because they're really bad areas. And I thought, well, that's interesting. But I didn't take any notice. I liked Fishermead. When the estate agent brought me round to view properties here, I just fell in love with it, and I thought, stop looking, you found what you want.
My view is that Fishermead is a place to stay. It's a good place to live. It's the way you live your life. If you go out for trouble, you will get it. But if you avoid it, you have a better life.
It's complicated. I think it seems a no-go area because it's not a rich estate and because it's a very diverse estate. Personally, I like both of those things. I'm not rich myself. I'm happy to live amongst other people who aren't either. And I really enjoy the diversity. I like to hear other languages and walking down the street.
Certainly with Fishermead, never would people judge the book by its cover. There is so much there. It's people everywhere, isn't it? Everyone's got their tale, their worth, And you have the opportunity in Fishermead to see that more than anywhere else I've been, that's for sure.
I'm also aware that there are some people, some residents, who possibly would kind of amplify that negative view, possibly because they have seen it better. If it was better, why can't we make it back like that? If it was like that before, there's nothing stopping us to do it now, because it's all in our hands. If we want it to be better, it would be better. We just need to look out for each other. We just need to make it happen.
And that is what is so encouraging about Fishermead today, that there are residents who are determined to reignite that spirit of community that long-term residents reminisce about. They're making it happen through a series of activities, many of them based at the Trinity Centre, that are bringing people together, building friendships, increasing mutual understanding, and addressing the needs of their community.
Here at the Trinity Centre and other places, there's meetings of local people, which I've never seen anywhere else I've lived before. So I've been to a couple of local community meetings, and I'm part of a couple of community Facebook pages, which I've not experienced. Even when I was living next door in Albrook, I wasn't involved like that.
MGB stands for Making Good Better. We look at the community, seeing what is going on. We said, yes, we will make things better. We will make things happen. And that is really what is happening. When I moved in 2016, I had a privilege talking to single parents that were going through depression, and some were just newly divorced, some were about their children that they were so depressed. And I grabbed that opportunity, talking and counseling them, letting them know that there is something good that will come out of them. They should not give up in life. So I started to get a place, a safe place, where we meet every month, once in the month, share ideas and experience together, and they're becoming stronger and stronger and stronger. And up to date, we are still doing it. That is where MGB was born. And come 2022, when I look around my local community here, which is Fishermead, there is no any breakfast club. MGB, we stepped in again, opened a breakfast club, non-profit breakfast club, just to bring people together, to socialize, to network, to break the spirit of loneliness. We have been able to put a smile into people's faces, and that is all we are about to support the community.
It's no good getting in a place and not doing anything or not seeing anyone. You don't know anybody that way. But at my age, it's good fun to get to know people.
Well, first I joined the church here in Trinity, and then we got involved in things like the larder, the community larder, and other activities. We do lots of celebrations for the royal events. Also, we have the breakfast club, and during the winter we've had lots of warm spaces, which have been really great for bringing the community together. Lots of time to talk and discuss things and just be there for each other.
I was involved in a litter pick, and I hope there's more litter picks, because I think one of the biggest issues on the estate and in the city in general is the amount of litter. And I think it's a community responsibility rather than a council responsibility. So it was a church-led, actually, community-led litter pick that I joined in, and will be happy to do so again.
People say, don't they, that you get as much volunteering as you do with the effort you put in. It's just been a new life. Fishermead is such an unusual place, and I've learned so much from the people that I've been with. I feel as though it's quite one-sided, that I gain so much.
I'm a Christian, and the way I came to be housed in Fishermead, I've always seen it as God has something for me in Fishermead, and that's why he sent me to Fishermead. Because my view of Fishermead is a place where those who know, those who have, are able to support those who don't, so that eventually everybody can stand.
Fishermead is a kind of community that we have all the nationalities here. And if we all, let's say even few on each nationality, stand on their ground to say, we really want Fishermead to be top of, we can even be top of UK. Why not? It's determined, yes. And Fishermead is a great, lovely place to be.
This film has been about Fishermead. We have seen how the people who landed there at different times and from different places are coming together to regenerate their community, celebrate its diversity and love living there, whatever the ill-informed outside world may say. But Fishermead's story is not unique. There are neighbourhoods throughout Milton Keynes who have a similar story to tell. We hope that this film will inspire them to tell it.
Let me tell you about the place I live. So much to do, so much to give. Everybody is welcome here under the chestnut trees. Come and join us in the neighborhood where all the dogs are friendly and the chicken is good. You don't know where it's gonna lead when you start a party in Fishermead. You can play out in the summer sun, down at the park, whole lot of fun. I'll be bouncing on a trampoline under the chestnut trees. Come and join us in the neighborhood where all the dogs are friendly and the chicken is good. You don't know where it's gonna lead when you start a party in Fishermead. Take a trip in Fishermead on a pirate ship in Fishermead. You can go to school in Fishermead. You can act like a fool in Fishermead. You can kick a ball in Fishermead. Anything at all in Fishermead. You can catch a bus to Fishermead. You can be one of us in Fishermead. Come and join us in the neighborhood where all the dogs are friendly and the chicken is good. You don't know where it's gonna lead when you start a party in Fishermead. Come and join us in the neighborhood where all the dogs are friendly and the chicken is good. You don't know where it's gonna lead when you start a party in Fishermead. We'll have a party